Hey guys, and welcome back to another lesson. Today I'm not going to teach you anything, rather I want to talk to you about an idea that I keep coming back to every now and then, and I've been doing so for many years now. And this idea has to do with a particular chord progression, which I think is very interesting, can be very powerful if used correctly, but is rarely used in modern music. And I guess what I'm trying to get at is trying to figure out why this is the case. Now, before we talk about the philosophy, let me outline what I'm talking about, and I'll give a few examples, and then we'll maybe get a little bit more philosophical. So the progression I'm talking about is a 1-2 major 5 progression. More maybe restrictedly, a 2 major to a 5 progression. Let's look at a major scale. You can pick any major scale, but I'm going to play a C major. What people often do is they number the notes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, which is just 1 again. And then when talking about harmony, people start out by building a chord on the first degree, which would be a C, by taking the first, third, and fifth degrees. So you get a C major chord, and then moving it up this scale. And this generates a sequence of chords. Now, on the first degree we get a C major chord, a C major triad. On the second we get a D minor. On the third we get an E minor. On the fourth an F major. On the fifth a G major. On the sixth an A minor. On the seventh a B diminished. And then we're back at C major. Now when people talk about harmony, they often use these numbers to signify the progression of chords. For example, a 2-5-1 progression, which is really very famous in jazz, consists of the chord built on the second degree, which is a D minor, leading to the chord built on the fifth degree, which is a G major, leading to the chord built on the first degree, which is a C major. So now, nobody plays it like this. People use inversions, higher degrees, more complex chords, but at the heart of it, it stays the same. For example, if I use inversions, I can play a D minor to a G major to a C major. And if I use extensions and I go into more jazz kind of harmony and voicings, maybe I'll play something like a D minor 11 to a G13 flat 9 to a C major 9. Okay, now what I was referring to is a particular progression which consists of playing the chord built on the second degree, but instead of playing it in the regular minor variation, we play it in the major variation. So a 2 major leading to a 5. The full form of this would be a 1, 2 major, 5. And in the key of C, this is a C major to a D major, not a D minor, to a G major. Okay, so far, so good. Now, I want to give you now a couple of examples, both from classical music, and a couple of examples for classical music, and then a couple of examples from more modern music where this kind of motion is used. So let's start with the classical. For me, kind of the quintessential place I remember this being used for the first time when I was listening to classical music is the second movement of Beethoven's Pathetic Sonata. Pathetic in the sense not as, crappy or miserable, but in the French sense of the word, which means grand. So the second movement goes like this. I'm going to play it kind of freely, and I'm going to transpose everything to C, to the key of C. So you get some consistency and you can follow along. So it kind of goes like this. and so on and so on. Now you might have missed it, but somewhere in there you had this 2 major to 5 progression, right? You get a C, which is a 1, a G major, which is a 5, an A minor, it's actually an A minor 7, but it's all the same. And then you get a D major to a G major. So here it is. It has a very unique sound. I think once you get used to it and you think about it, it's almost impossible to miss. Let me give you another example. And by the way, I completely urge you to go and listen to, there are many renditions by famous and very talented pianists, much more talented than I am, playing the second movement. It's a beautiful piece in its own right. You should definitely go and have a listen. You can easily find it on YouTube. Second example is another famous melody called An Air on the G String by Bach. Now, this has a very famous kind of bass line. I'm gonna play it, well, it's in G, so the original melody is in the key of G, but I'm gonna play it transposed to C, again just to keep everything consistent in the same key, but and so on and so on. Now again, you might have missed it, but it's still there. If you look at it, and here it is. Right? If I play the full chords, it becomes easier to spot. So you have to just look for the D major going to the G major, because those are the 2 major and 5 in the key of C. And here it comes. Right? D major to a G major. Again, a very distinct sound. Now, can we find cases of this progression in modern music? Well, it turns out to be much harder than when looking at classical music. But I'll give you 2 examples. 2 kind of classic examples. The first is from one of ABBA's most famous songs, which is Waterloo. And in fact, it actually starts out by playing a 1, 2 major, 5. Now, if you don't know this song, have a listen. It's, again, very easy to find on YouTube. The bass stays on a C, but that's, I guess, for me, that's still fair game. And so on and so on. Now, you'll forgive my imperfect rendition, but my point is that there's a very distinct sound to the beginning. 1, 2 major, 5. And it has a very powerful sound to it. Let me give you one more example from more modern music. And I think the band, for me, that most kind of used this progression in its songs is Queen. So the kind of the quintessential example is Somebody to Love. So this happens actually twice if you've paid attention. It starts out by... It actually sounds a little bit similar to the second movement in Beethoven's sonata. I don't know if this is a coincidence or not, but... But here you have a 1 to a 2 major to a 5. And then again, two major to a 5. And in fact, again, a 1, 2 major, 5. And so on and so on. So really a succession of very powerful applications of the 2-5 or 2 major 5 and 1-2 major 5 progressions. In fact, if you start listening to Queen songs, you'll find it in many, many different ones. As one more example, you could take something like Bohemian Rhapsody. And the Bohemian Rhapsody song is partitioned into 3 parts. You have the ballad at the beginning, then you have the mini opera in this middle, and then you have the rock piece at the end. And at the end of the rock piece, you have a guitar riff that is a 1-2 major 5 progression. So, a C, which is a 1, then a D major, which is a 2 major, and then a 5. I guess the important thing, to which I don't have a good answer, to be honest, is why has this progression disappeared almost completely from the landscape of songwriting? It wasn't ever really that common to begin with, but if you look at actually all of the songs I've encountered over the past maybe 2 decades, at the very least, I would be hard-pressed to find something that contains this progression. Now, of course, if you know such examples, I'd be very happy to hear about them in the comment section, but this doesn't really answer the main question of why have people stopped using this when writing songs. It has a very unique sound. It's very different from a lot of the things that you hear today, and actually being different is not a bad thing. You might even look at this as a personal challenge. If you write your own songs, can you write a song that has this progression? Does it make sense? Does it fit in with the kinds of melodies that you try to create? So I don't have a good answer to this, and I've told you starting out that I'm not going to teach you anything. I'm not going to solve this riddle for you. I just wanted to put it out there and have you think about it as well. You know, why should I be the only one stuck on thinking about this almost useless thing? But I still find it very, very interesting. Why has the 1-2 major 5 progression disappeared from the songwriting landscape? Who knows? Just one more of music's mystery. Well, I hope I've given you something to think about, and that you've learned something interesting, and that you'll be paying attention to this going forward, and I will see you next time.